This is the regularly scheduled December 8th City of Port Orchard Council meeting.
Did she move out?
I'd like to call that meeting to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Our city attorney called me about 4:30 and said she has major flooding at her house and was trying to take care of that and maybe wouldn't be here, and she's not here, so I imagine she's still taking care of that. So just wanted to let you all know that's why she isn't here. And we're on item 2, citizens' comments. And hang on a minute, let me see if I have... Nobody has signed up. That's okay. If you'd still like to make a comment to the council, please raise your hand to be recognized. Make your comments. Yes, sir.
On tonight's agenda, we're going to be discussing.
Could you lift your mic up? There.
Shows that there will be a discussion about the Transportation Benefit District, and it really would have been nice had there been a little more public outreach prior to this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any others? All right, seeing none, we'll move on then. Approval of the agenda. Council, what's your pleasure?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any comments, questions, additions? Oops, sorry here. I've got to turn off my... It's a good reminder. If you have a cell phone, please turn it off, like I didn't. But anyhow, okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there, once again, any other changes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent or the regular agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. All right, approved. We have approved the agenda. We're on item 4, consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add an item which would be G to the consent agenda to authorize the mayor to execute the Bay Street pedestrian pathway segment number 4 bike pedestrian bridge project completion report for the Department of Commerce direct appropriations grant.
Okay, we have a motion to authorize that signature, Department of Commerce grant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Open the floor for comments or discussion.
Is this motion to put it onto the consent agenda?
Correct, to put it on the consent agenda.
I see.
And it's authorization to sign it.
It's authorization to sign the project completion report for the bridge portion of the BAF.
And there's no fiscal effect from it. Okay.
Okay, any other comments? All right, we'll be voting on adding G to our consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, back to the main motion on the consent agenda.
I don't believe we have the main motion yet.
I'm sorry?
Did we have a main motion?
I believe, no, we didn't? Okay. How about,
Is amended?
yes.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any other comments or questions? None. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Thank you. All right, we're at presentation part of our council meeting, and Mr. Powers is here from Kitsap Economic Development Alliance, KEDA, and welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I appreciate this opportunity to come before you and the public to update you on our activities through the third quarter. You have in front of you a written report of activities. And before I go into that, just a couple other remarks. In addition to looking at the casework in the third quarter this year, we're also going to share with the council and the public some of our updates on the marketing tools that we use to sell and tell the Kitsap story, community by community, as well as business by business. So tonight we'll have 2 or 3 brief videos. One you've seen before, but I thought you'd want to see it again. It's about Port Orchard. And then another about a Port Orchard area business, and then the bigger picture of Kitsap County and our economy, but an abbreviated version. This is a 3-minute presentation on what had been 10 minutes when we originally produced it. I also want to take this opportunity to thank both Councilmember Jerry Childs and Mayor Tim Mathis for their service on our board over the last several years since I've been here. I very much appreciate it. We have our 4th quarter board meeting coming up, as you know, later this week on Thursday, right here in Port Orchard, up at the county administrative offices. And then following that board meeting, we will convene for a holiday reception down at the Kitsap Bank, right here in Port Orchard as well. And we're expecting a good turnout. I'll look forward to seeing you both as well. And thank you very much for your service. So, the report I have in front of you, which we provide to our public partners on a quarterly basis, summarizes the type of work we do and the number of clients assisted year to date. At the top of page 1, you'll see by quarter, and the far left column, the third quarter, the type of casework we have done in that quarter. There were 58 research and referral cases handled, 32 companies directly assisted, 32 companies that were visited on site relative to their business interest and needs, 5 companies in the startup area, 1 company in early stage technology, and then if you swing over to the far right column, you'll see the annual goals by category. Now this is countywide. We'll break it down by jurisdiction below, but countywide, we are doing well relative to our yearly goals on the top 4 categories. Research and referrals, we're at 106% of our annual target through the first 3 quarters. Companies assisted, 65%, so just a little behind that 75% year-to-date benchmark. Visits and presentations, 85%, right on course there. And then startup assistance and early technology firms were really lagging there quite a bit, but I'll be quick to point out in the 4th quarter, which we report on as the year begins, we had a very exceptional 10-day period in November when we sponsored an entrepreneurship week, and we had 9 events directly aimed at startups and small companies, and we had a really good turnout. I think we had over 110 folks attend a variety of programs aimed at the small business. So you'll see improvement there. Please, Mayor.
Just a question. Brandy, can you get this up on the screens for us, please, the presentation?
Boom. Sorry, I should have thought about that. I apologize if you have a copy.
Well, can we get it up with this?
I apologize, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. That would assist.
that way-
that would assist the public, and I appreciate that.
Hey, thanks.
So let's see here. Okay. So what we had just covered were the types of assistance given by quarter and year-to-date totals. Then in the center of the first page, it basically is a pie chart breaking out the percentage of the type of services we provide during that third quarter. And then at the bottom, most interesting to the various jurisdictions, we have the 4 municipalities and Kitsap County. That would be unincorporated Kitsap County. And then we layer in the businesses assisted in the third quarter in each jurisdiction and the type of assistance. The one relative to the city of Port Orchard in the third quarter, we would show that there were 3 PTAC clients assisted. PTAC is our Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which is aimed at assisting small businesses to secure government contract work, most of that with Naval Base Kitsap and the Department of Defense, but not all. And then we also have PTAC classes where rather than a direct assist with a specific company on a specific case, we hold open classes for contractors to come in and receive general information and advice. 2 companies from the Port Orchard community participated in the third quarter on that. And then the next item in green is recruitment cases. And in this quarter, there were 11 potential recruitment assists pertaining to the city of Port Orchard. And you'll see as we turn the page that much of that is related to our Aerospace and Defense Alliance activities. And then the fourth category there is inquiries and reports. And relative to Port Orchard businesses, there would have been 4 with a Port Orchard address that we assisted on a direct inquiry, for a total of 20 Port Orchard businesses assisted in the third quarter. The second page is basically a breakdown of our business recruitment or attraction activity, we call it, for that period, the third quarter. And you'll see here that almost all of this casework undertaken in the third quarter was related to our aerospace and defense work and participation at this year's Paris Air Show, which was the delegation led by Tim Thompson, a resident here of Port Orchard, and my co-chair of the Kitsap Aerospace and Defense Alliance. And then down below that bar graph of cases that are project coded, you'll see broken out the type of activity. And 2 that I want to bring to your attention that I think are particularly of importance. We had 2 great events in the third quarter aimed again at defense contractors and small defense contractors. And on July 29th up at Olympic College, we had a Meet the Buyers panel. We had over 110 in attendance and 20 local companies that heard from a panel of contract officers at Naval Base Kitsap in a variety of ways as to what they were looking for and how you needed to present your case from your rate card right on down to secure that type of work. We were very pleased with the outcome and the turnout at the college. And then just a couple weeks later, we had a Northwest Industry outreach at the Keyport, Naval Base Keyport facility, and there we had a very good turnout as well. 36 companies attended, including quite a bit of out-of-state companies, because as you know, Naval Base Kitsap and its 5 missions are chock full of technology and engineering, and much of this work is bid on and performed by companies that are outside of our market but come in and establish regional hubs and offices to serve that, and they have offices throughout Kitsap County. So a pretty active third quarter relative to that type of work. And then if you turn to the third page, this is a brief summary of 3 active business retention cases. And those are companies that are already here that we're working with on certain issues to try and help them grow and prosper here. You'll see the date that the case was opened. Some go back as far as 6 years into June of 2010. The most recent, June of 14, and then a quick note to update what was done with that particular client in the third quarter of this year. And then if you turn to the final 2 pages, it really is much about our marketing of the communities in Kitsap and the businesses, promoting the businesses that are here. And you'll see in the final page that it has a very complete report as to how people interface with our alliance. Most of that is done online and social media and connecting on data and reports that we host on our website. I would draw the community's attention to our website, which is the kitsapeda.org website. And on that, you will find a wealth of information regarding our economy. And you'll also see on the very bottom box here the types of pages that are accessed when you come into our website. And the last one is dubbed Life Plus Work, and that is our video collection promoting our marketplace. Over 1,724 connections or downloads from that particular portfolio of videos. And what I've done tonight is I've brought for the council and the community some examples of those videos. Now, some you're familiar with and some are new. And the way we paint this picture is we first talk about our economy in the big picture, its character, its competitive nature, the components, its connectivity to the larger regional market. Then we break it down by community, and I want to commend Port Orchard because you, 2 years ago, invested in a video that tells your story in a very unique way. And then the third one I'd like to present tonight, and these are all very brief, is about a local area company. You're all familiar with it, Safe Boats, a manufacturer here that's doing quite well. They're at record production and record employment. And they're located out at the port of Bremerton at the Olympic View Business Park. But as you know, they access your waterfront here in Port Orchard to test their boats, and you'll see a little bit of that. So with that, and perhaps before I take any questions, I'll turn to Brandy and ask her to share with you and the community these videos. First one is the big picture on Kitsap. There we go. Well, we had it up and running before the meeting started.
The key term to understanding Kitsap County is connected.
We wanted to be where there were mountains. We wanted to be where there was water. We wanted to be where there were good schools and good place for our children to grow up.
We like the community that we have, the community spirit that we have here.
We are as advantaged here business-wise as anybody else. We're just having a better time than anybody else.
Kitsap County, Washington is a vital contributor to the life and work of the greater Seattle area, producing innovative goods, services, and a spectacular quality of life.
You look at the greater Puget Sound area, which we are part of, Kitsap, we offer the best of both worlds. We've got a great place to live in a more affordable place than Seattle or Tacoma. At the same time, you're close to all those great amenities. A ferry right away or across the Narrows Bridge. I think we have the best of all worlds here.
Kitsap is a regional superstar with higher employment and household income, more IP development and economic output, and more educational attainment per capita than even its prosperous neighbors.
Highly skilled, they're dedicated to the work that they do. We are just fortunate, extremely fortunate, that they've chosen to come to work for us.
That's why people are so surprised of what's here. There's just a magic and a connection that people have, and yet we're a ferry ride away from this major metropolitan area.
In recruiting and retaining top talent, Kitsap's Life-Work Balance, featuring 250 miles of scenic saltwater shoreline, is a game changer.
I still find myself at awe with where I live and what we have out here. From my son's school system to the opportunity I've had to be a homeowner.
I like the word authenticity because we're really striving for having authentic experiences in Kitsap and also demonstrating that we value authenticity here.
There were several defining things about Kingston. One is the water. The Puget Sound is absolutely unique as a body of water with the traffic and fishing and boating activities. The other thing that just amazed us being from the Midwest is you come over the top of a hill and a mountain pops up.
Kitsap lives life in style, with a lower cost of living and cost of business than the rest of Puget Sound, superior public schools and lifelong learning options, and first-class medical care.
I think it's pretty top-notch. I mean, you would get the same kind of care here that you would get in Seattle.
But if you like outdoor activity and you want to live in one of the most beautiful places in the country, this would be the place to move to.
It is the opportunity that is first, the business opportunity. That's what I see here. That's what I learned very quickly here, that there is enormous business opportunity.
Kitsap County, the best of life plus work. Positioned for prosperity, competitive, connected.
we'll take a closer look at the city of Port Orchard.
A place to work, a place to live, a place to play. Few destinations combine the best of these three worlds so dramatically.
I live in Port Orchard, Washington, and I chose to live in Port Orchard, Washington.
We share this fabulous environment which surrounds us all.
I feel like Port Orchard is a small town with loads of potential.
Port Orchard sits on one of the world's great inland waterways, the Puget Sound, across Sinclair Inlet from the mighty naval shipyard. With 13,000 residents, it's both cozy and cosmopolitan, a place people come to visit and a place people come to stay. Port Orchard is Kitsap County's seat, and its popularity is on the rise, the fastest growing town in the state of Washington.
It's a good place to do business and a good place to live.
For best-selling author Debbie Macomber, this best of both worlds provides both the scene sets for her novels and the inspiration to write them.
Started out with a rented typewriter and the kitchen table and 4 little kids running around. It's well over 100 books now, many of which are being reissued with new titles and new covers in a combination volume. Those that have been printed are about 170 million now. And 5 movies.
As it has been for over 120 years, much of Port Orchard's industry and economy is maritime.
My name's Lauren Hay. I'm here at Yachtfish Marine. Yachtfish is a marine construction and repair facility. I love living here. I can never see getting away from the water again.
But thanks to its location and lifestyle, Port Orchard is also attracting new people and new businesses, software and services, boutiques and startups, becoming an integral part of the booming economy of Greater Puget Sound. Entrepreneur Rick Flaherty is pioneering a new generation of energy-efficient LED lighting.
This is a good place to be located in the sense of if you're selling something green and sustainable, there's probably not a better place.
A state-of-the-art aerospace composites manufacturer is setting up shop next door.
We're just in this bountiful arena of natural ingredients.
Dan Robinson is a master of the ancient art of bonsai, adorning an already spectacular natural environment with classical perfection.
I love to simulate the best of nature as I've seen it, and I've spent a good portion of my 75 years always in pursuit of interesting materials to bring to my collection, and this now houses my collection of great trees and plants and rocks and gnarly stuff. I like stuff that's gnarly.
Bonsai enthusiasts and tourists in general come from all over everywhere to soak up the environmental elegance of Elandon Gardens and the Kitsap County experience. Port Orchard takes pride in its air, water, and land, and being a little gnarly at heart, too. Or at play, people in Port Orchard just seem to be enjoying themselves a little more than the rest of us.
Oh, I love walking downtown. I love having a home that we own and that we can do what we want with. Riding a boat to get to anywhere has got to be one of the best features of this town, for sure.
Port Orchard is family friendly and supports a whole calendar of festivals, shows, events, and attractions that breathe vitality and life into residents, retirees, and recreators. This particular week, it's the Chris Craft Rendezvous at the Marina, classic boats, and contemporary good times.
Port Orchard is special for a number of reasons. First of all, it's a beautiful place to live.
We get a lot of people in the summer that come from these places where they want to get away from where they live. I never want to get away from here. This place is just hospitable.
I think that we are on the verge of something great in this town.
Your welcoming destination, a great place to work, to live, to play.
Now we will zone in on a business in this area that is about work and commerce, but I think it draws in some of the same themes. One more time.
Faster, safer, stronger. They provide security right down the road and around the world.
SAFE actually stands for Secured All-Around Flotation Equipped, so it's actually an acronym, not just a name.
Safe boats are the most reliable boats in the world that are produced right here in Bremerton. The fact that we've had no hull failures is a real testament to the workforce and the quality that they put out. We have about 370 full-time employees in Kitsap County. We have a strong engineering team here. Bulk of them were educated in Washington State, went to Washington State schools. They're marine engineers, and they know how to put out some pretty fast boats. So I think the inspiration is coming to work for Safe Boats with the quality of the staff that we have here, inspiration of seeing the Olympic Mountains in the distance.
This is probably the most beautiful area that my family and I have seen. The amenities are top-notch. The fact that you can be in rural areas but also being in urban areas within less than an hour, this is kind of unique, I think, given this particular region.
Going 45 knots on open water on the Dye Inlet right here in Kitsap County is very impressive.
Our boats are built, designed, and manufactured for high-performance conditions that the operators will see.
The quality of the welding that goes into it and the fact that we have a very dynamic hull that can go very fast in the water, make aggressive turns, but at the same time remain stable because of our collar technology. So, purpose-built design for high speed and safety.
Here, it's a smaller environment. It's very clear that what the work you do, you can see the product coming out the door and saying, I helped build that product, knowing that somebody from the Navy or the Coast Guard or some sheriff's department is going to take that boat and operate it, come home safe, and be able to accomplish their mission, and feel that real sense of pride in what the police here can actually do.
Safe Boats, proven performance in the toughest conditions.
As economic developers is to attract interest to our market, support what we have, attract additional investment into our market from existing businesses or new ones, and then as a result of that investment, new employment base. And I think for companies like Safe Boats or others that come to market with this message, they're first define themselves within our community, second, they're reaching out to the larger market, and third, they're recruiting and I think enticing additional investment from clients as well as workforce. So we're constantly trying to put ourselves forward into the market with the best foot forward, whether we're here in Port Orchard, whether we're countywide, or whether we're company specific. At our January 28th Economic Forecast Conference at the Conference Center, we will unveil this as well as 5 other new videos focused on local businesses, most of them manufacturers. Watson Furniture will be another one in North Kitsap, and our job is to help them tell their stories so they can grow and prosper, and we look for opportunities to assist businesses like that, no matter where they be located in Kitsap County. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Hey, Council, yes.
Any of those businesses in our industrial park, maybe potentially Omohundro or Leader, have we approached either one of them?
I look forward to helping Omohundro Composites, soon to be rebranded and renamed Kitsap Composites, tell their story. We have assisted that company on a variety of fronts, including with business and client relations. They may or may not choose to do a video like that about their business, but we are producing a video on aerospace and defense companies in general, several examples, and we hope they'll participate on that.
Thank you.
You bet.
Other comments or questions?
John, I just think you've done a great job of representing the Kitsap Peninsula, us as well, and we appreciate your hard work.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate that.
I agree.
I thank the city and the leadership here for your support. You are among our top public partners in supporting our work, and I look forward to a long relationship. Seeing you two gentlemen at the board meeting at the end of the week, and I wish you all happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you for coming, presenting this. Appreciate it. All right, we're on item 6A. We do have a public hearing scheduled. And Mr. Dorsey, would you give us an update, bring us up to speed on our public hearing that we're going to be
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. In 2015, the City of Port Orchard commenced with the Transportation Plan Element update of the city's comprehensive plan. As a function of that activity, the project list within the city's Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, was amended for project years 2016 through 2036. Subsequent to that activity, the Port Orchard City Council chose to address transportation funding need by looking into innovative ways of funding transportation shortfalls, such as establishing a Transportation Impact Fee, or TIF, or by the formation of a Transportation Benefit District, or a TBD, as allowed under Chapter 36.73 RCW. The purpose of the public hearing this evening is to hear public testimony on the question of whether a TBD should be formed coextensive with the city limits and whether the TBD should impose a vehicle fee on certain vehicles under RCW 82.80.140 for the purpose of funding the project list within the City of Port Orchard's 2016-2036 Transportation Improvement Program. Staff recommends opening the public hearing and to deliberate whether to establish a transportation benefit district.
Okay, thank you. I will hereby open the public hearing on the subject of the Transportation Benefit District and on potential vehicle tax, a vehicle fee anyway. Nobody signed up. So once again, I will open the mic to anyone to raise their hand and come and make your testimony. Please.
Jerry Harmon. I think that it's a done deal, but I also think that 99% of the people in this community have no idea that this is going forth. And I think it's one of the things that I really believe that you as a council need to start getting people involved early on instead of waiting until the last minute. It's nobody knows about it. And I also feel that you as council people need to become more aggressive with our federal government because they're putting nothing but more and more laws in place where you are putting more taxes on your people locally instead of the taxes that we're paying getting back to you. And it's happening in all areas of our life, from the this traffic deal to having all the increases that you're putting on us. And for a lot of people, I know that I can handle it for a few years, but there's a lot of people out there that are going to be hurting and hurting badly because of all of the things that you're increasing. And I know you have to do it because of the Puget Sound Regional Council to get federal money, but it's still, they don't even know that it's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Alyssa Whittleton. I support what Jerry has just said, and also my husband, in that we need more public outreach before these things go forth. We're already seeing some other raises, and I know things have to be paid for. I think the public would also like to be reassured that we're really, how should I put it, being very, very frugal with any increases, making sure that what's being asked for is absolutely going to what is being professed to be needed. So, like I say, more public outreach, I think, and maybe there'll be less upset from other people out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Nobody from this side? Anyone? Going once, twice? All right, then. You sure? Okay, we'll hereby close the public hearing. And Council, what's your pleasure? What would you like to?
I'll make the motion so we can. I've got some questions too. So, let's see here. The City Council moves to adopt ordinance number 027-15, thereby establishing a transportation benefit district within the city, Port Orchard city limits.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Open the floor for discussion, Mr. Patonsu.
Mr. Dorsey, in your staff report, it's my understanding that we were merely establishing the TBD, and there aren't any car tabs or taxes or funding mechanism at all associated with this at this time. That was going to be a later task. So I just want to confirm that, because in your staff report you refer to imposing a vehicle fee, and
right.
That isn't that step. This step right here is establishing the framework, and it was my understanding in 2016 we would work through a process, what level it would be, whether it's going to the vote of the citizens or not, and what the funding mechanisms are going to be, which is completely
the
different
resolution
process.
speaks strictly to establishing the framework. In the staff report, I guess inadvertently, I said, and to discuss, because this is just a public hearing, to discuss if a TBD should impose. So I added that just as for conversation, but there's nothing in the resolution that's establishing any sort of.
So there's no funding mechanisms to this at all. No. It's just the framework.
This is just the framework.
Thank you.
And for clarification, it's an ordinance, not a resolution.
Excuse me.
Or ordinance, yes.
Mr. Dorsey, and just once again, there's several funding vehicles that could be considered later down the road for this, besides the license tabs. Is that correct?
Right. There's a whole menu of options that we've discussed, and we've been talking about this thing for about a year at several public meetings, work study primarily, and I think in those conversations, I know the treasurer went to a great length to research TBDs, and between the treasurer, our transportation engineer, and our city attorney, we had quite a robust conversation on all those options that are available to the city. And again, this is just to establish a framework to have those future conversations.
Okay, last question for you. There's no time limit to establish funding mechanisms. We can establish this and consider all or none or some of these different funding mechanisms at our leisure. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding, yes.
Okay. Other comments and questions? Mr. Chang.
I have a couple comments. The first is I am very interested in having something like this at a high level, and it's actually very helpful to actually see the ordinance in print. And, pardon? Nothing. And seeing it as I'm looking at it now, there are a couple of concerns. One is that, for example, page 3, functions of the district, section 8, saying by a majority vote of its governing board, we may authorize a motor vehicle fee of up to $20. And this is something that I don't think we've actually established if we're going to do it by a vote of the board or if we were going to go to a vote of the citizens. And that's what, so just seeing it the way written here, though, it doesn't, I know that item B, for example, talks about approval by district voters. for the other items outside of the $20 fee. So if I were to support this, my understanding would be that item A would have another vote. Well, I think we're undecided if we're going to go to the people for a vote for the $20. I don't think we fully discussed that. But I do have one more point, sorry. On page 2, we're talking about establishing the Transportation Benefit District. It's talking about the district as being the Port Orchard city limits as they currently exist or as they may exist following future annexations. And this is where I have heartburn because I was hoping that by this time we would have had some conversation with the county. I think that if the city residents are the only ones paying the motor vehicle fee, it might be a disservice to them because these roads will be serving people outside the city. So I'm a little uncomfortable about that clause. It doesn't sound like we're leaving any sort of flexibility for an...
I can speak to it.
Okay.
I believe the question... Are these microphones? Seem
Are they
a
too
little-
loud?
It's
I may be speaking too
echoing in
close.
here, it seems.
I'll move it away.
Well, I'd move mine away, too. What I thought I'd heard from staff was that we could amend this later to include the county if the county chose to participate. And at this time, I mean, Beck and I had a meeting 2 weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago with Commissioner Garrido. There's interest in having dialogue, but that's as far as it's gotten. And so, I mean, we need to continue that path and have that dialogue with the county to determine what their level of interest is. But it was my understanding that we can amend this later to include a different area, not just the city limits. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think it's important to point out that, I mean, this is an ordinance, and it's, it was written by the attorney, and so when you have terms like or may, it's not shall. So I see it as the opposite, Councilman Chang, where this is actually written as a framework that provides a lot of option. It's basically saying that the governing board may authorize. It's not saying shall authorize. So there is specific language in here that actually creates it as a framework with option.
And Fred, I just wanted to address your question about that section A. And basically, the way I read that is simply putting in the ordinance what RCW 36.73 allows us to do. And when you or the Transportation Benefit District can charge a $20 license tax fee without a vote of the public, just with the board's approval. And they can keep that in place they can do that that's what they're authorized to do. Once it's in place for 24 months, they can increase it another $20 without going to the public. And then the RCW is very clear on what needs a public vote and what does not need a public vote. And there were some other language in here I was a little concerned, or not concerned about, but had questions of. And again, it's just framework. And then it talks about you have the right for general obligation bonds and revenue bonds. And I'm assuming that encumbers the city's debt. And it's not just the Transportation Benefit District's debt. That if we did that, that's, reduces any other bonding we could do.
Right.
But again, those are just...
That would be the case, because the way I understand it, you would be dedicating the revenue generated by the TBD to pay off the bonds.
For a revenue bond. What about a GO?
I don't know that you have, does the Transportation Benefit District have
assets
that you could do a GO bond?
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be a revenue bond. It would actually be a general obligation bond. And under the statute I'm reading here, it would be, if you went to the vote of the people, set an ad valorem tax levy, you would pledge that tax collection to bond repayment.
That's a property.
Right.
It's a property tax, which would require a vote. But I agree with you, Beck, in the sense that this outlines what is allowed under the RCW. It doesn't necessarily obligate you to follow that. nor would we necessarily, if we put this, say we did a $20 thing and put it out to the voters, I think it would be an advisory vote that would still fall back on the board of the TBD to make the final decision. Now, if you go above $20, then that's different. Then you do put that before the voters, and whatever the voters say decides the issue.
That's the way I understand it also.
Other comments or questions? Discussion? Are we ready then to vote on this?
So by approving this, we're simply creating a district and the governing board and the treasurer.
We're saying that now we have a district. Yeah. Okay. All those in favor of establishing a transportation benefit district within the city of Port Orchard city limits as proposed, say aye.
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 Anyone against that, say nay. Oh, all right, that motion carries. Okay, we're at business item 7A. Mr. Martin, could you tell us about this one, please?
Much. This is the second reading and adoption of an ordinance amending the 2015 budget. Actions involving amendments to the budget take two readings. This is the second reading of an ordinance amending ordinance number 02014, adopting the 2015 budget. The first reading and public hearing seeking comment on the budget amendments was held November 24th, 2015. The city budget is written to capture revenue and expenses over the fiscal year. During the year, changes to the budget in both revenue and expenditure need to be recognized by budget amendments. Ordinance number 515, 1015, and 815 recognize changes to the budget in the first part of the year. This budget amendment ordinance recognizes changes during the second half of the year. The budget amendment ordinance reflects the following: $137,000 for prisoner boarding expenses from current expense fund, $34,000 for prisoner medical expenses from current expense fund, a transfer of $80,000 from the Water Sewer Utility Fund number 401 to the Water Sewer Cumulative Reserve number 403 for capital facilities collected as a portion of the water sewer rate, $164,000 from the Water Sewer Utility Fund number 401 for purchased water due to well number 6 and well number 9 being offline at times, and $120,000 additional retail sales and use tax to the current expense fund. The Council Finance Committee recommends adoption of an ordinance amending the 2015 budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen.
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending the 2015 budget of the city of Port Orchard.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Open the floor for comments, discussion. Comments, any discussion? Seeing none, we're going to be voting on a motion to amend the 2015 budget of the city of Port Orchard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries. Thank you. Business item 7B. Mr. Martin, could you tell us about this one, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Mathis. The Mayor of Port Orchard completed and placed on file a proposed budget and estimate of the amount of the monies required to meet the public expense, bond retirement and interest, reserve funds, and expense of the government of the city for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2016. As required, the City Council held a public meeting on revenue sources for the coming budget year, including consideration of possible increases in property tax revenue. The Finance Committee met independently to study the proposed budget and held budget interviews that required the presence of department heads. Input was sought from the full council. A final hearing seeking public input on the proposed budget was held December 7th, 2015. That was last evening. The 2016 budget does not exceed the lawful limit of taxation allowed by law to be levied on the property within the city of Port Orchard for the purpose described in the 2016 budget, and the estimated expenditures in each fund are all necessary to carry on the government of the city for fiscal year 2016. The 2016 budget reflects department head requests, mayor's priorities, citizen comment, Finance Committee, and City Council input and modifications. The Council Finance Committee recommends approval of an ordinance adopting the 2016 budget for the City of Port Orchard for the fiscal year 2016. Copies are on file with the Office of the City Treasurer. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Mr. Clausen?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance adopting the 2016 budget.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We open the floor for comments and discussion. Mr. Charles?
I always have similar concerns with our budget. I know I voted for it last year, and but the issues are always the same, and it has to do with oversight by the council for LPAC funds. And I've said I'm almost like a broken record when I talk about our salaries and as a part of the overall budget and the information we have to make those decisions about the salaries. You guys know I do that, so that's nothing new. And I was a little concerned about the 3.4% increase on the levy amount, and I wasn't really in favor of that, so I'll probably vote no. I know everybody else is probably voting yes, and so just reflecting my concerns.
Okay, any other on this side? Over here, any other comments or questions? Any more discussion? Right, seeing none. The motion is I move to approve the ordinance adopting the 2016 budget as presented. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Nay.
Let the record show there's one in opposition. That motion carries. All right. 7C, Mr. Bond, could you tell us about this one, please?
Yes, thank you. The city annually reviews its permit fee resolution to ensure that all permit fees are set to prescribed levels, are set as prescribed and at levels which are sufficient to cover the cost of administration. This includes adjustments to building permit valuation tables provided by the International Code Council to reflect the changing construction valuations. In addition to adopting the August 2015 ICC building valuation tables, the attached resolution makes the following additions and adjustments. There's an adjustment to subdivision application fees as well as clarification of the terms used in the attachment to the resolution to match the new interim subdivision code. Shoreline exemption fees are adjusted from $100 to $150. There are fees established both for administrative interpretations under the city's permit processing code and for the issuance of a statement of restrictions under state law. Both are $75, although attorney's fees can be added to the interpretation provision. There's a fee created for the placement of WSDOT directional signage, and this is something that Mark's department does. These are the lodging, fuel, and food signs that you see coming off of 16, and then they direct people to those businesses. The people who buy those signs have to bring them to the city, and the city installs them, so this is an hour labor to put up the sign, and something we've been doing for free up until this point. Next is concurrency fees. Previously, there was a flat fee for this review, but it's actually much more complicated depending on the type of the project. Many subdivisions will have concurrency review at the time they submit the application for the entire subdivision versus for an individual house. And so this is going to be a pass-through cost based on what it costs the consultant to review an application for concurrency. Additionally, the street vacation ordinance that was passed last week, that fee has been added to the city's fee resolution, although please note, and Councilmember Ashby pointed out in an email to staff that the red line copy says $150, but the clean copy says $100. Brandy had adjusted that at the last minute, and it didn't get changed on the red line version, so that fee is $100 for an application plus a appraisal fee. Finally, impact fee deferrals. The code now provides a process for deferring an impact fee until certificate of occupancy. Then there's parking permits, and then there's a couple of provisions for waiving appeal fees in the event that somebody has a financial hardship, and also a statement clarifying that recording fees are paid by the applicant. That's always been the case, it's just never been explicitly stated. And then there's been a handful of typographical corrections and formatting changes, and in a couple of cases the resolution didn't refer to the correct permit title. So in all, it's not a huge adjustment in the permit fees, but there's a bit of red on the document that you see.
Lawson.
Nick, I had a question on, well, actually, I have a couple questions. The first question deals with the application of impact fee deferral. That is a fee that we will be charging if they want to defer paying the impact fees until occupancy?
Yeah, it's an elective fee because somebody has to come to the city and actually request to have their fees deferred. And so the ordinance that was passed by council said that deferrals were allowed, that you had to make an application for a deferral, and that the city would charge a minimum of 4 hours review time because we have to process their application and then track it and potentially put a lien on a property in the event it's not paid. And so the $300 fee is commensurate with the amount of time that would be expected to spend on entering and tracking that and then eventually collecting the fee, including making sure that the fee is paid to the school district at a later date as well.
So this would be a fee on top of the impact fee?
Correct, and you don't have to pay it if you pay your impact fee when you get your application or when you get your permit.
Okay, and my final question would be, have we sent this proposed change out so that those who will be affected have had a chance to look at it? Or?
Yeah, we sent an email to the realtors and the home builders last week containing this information and didn't get any comments on it.
Okay, thank you.
What's your pleasure? Yes,
Well, we haven't even got a motion, do we? So
don't have a motion.
I can make the motion, at least to get going. I move to adopt a resolution repealing resolutions number 002-15 and 023-14, updating the permit fee resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
So
Mr. Childs.
Nick, just following up with what John said, so this whole schedule went out to the home builders and realtors? Not
That's
just
correct.
the issue about the impact fee, but
The whole resolution and the attachment A in the red line.
And no
version.
response?
No, well, we got an acknowledgement, but not any comment on it.
No comment. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chang?
I have a quick question for Brandy on the residential parking permits. There's a term here that I don't recall. It's called temporary residential parking permit. Is that the same as a guest permit, or what is that? Do you recall?
The code, a guest is somebody who is staying at the resident, and a temporary permit is if somebody, we issue temporary permits to the county Board of Equalizations because they meet sometimes, and so we give them a temporary parking permit. And then also the transitional housing, because they don't fall within the term or definition of guest, so they're temporary and they get a permit as well.
So it's another category.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Brandy, don't we use that category if somebody is doing some sort of construction and they put a dumpster in a parking space for 3 or 4 days?
Not, the construction is under a different part of the ordinance, but what that would apply to is if somebody wants to take up a parking stall and they have a moving van that's going to exceed the time limit, that would also apply. That's not tied to a building permit.
Other comments and questions?
Yeah, just for clarification, Mr. Bond, the fee schedule was not vetted by the Finance Committee or any other committee before it was brought forward?
Correct. There was no December meeting scheduled, and since some of these, especially the impact fee and concurrency things take effect in January, we needed to have this approved, and so it was suggested just to bring it straight to council.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, then we're going to be voting on resolution repealing resolutions number 00215 and resolution 02314, updating the permit fee resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Thank you. Okay. 7D. Clerk Reinerson.
Thanks anyway, but I've already read it.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Council. So with the recent increase in public records request over the last couple of years, staff is looking for ways to streamline the process internally and for the public. Staff followed the procedures outlined in Resolution 009-15, Section 6, and researched a company that offers a subscription-based software that provides a web portal for the public to submit public records requests online, check the status of their request, and view all previously completed requests. The portal will also direct the public to portions of the website that may already have information to the requester that they may be searching for. There is also a records archive that will allow staff to be proactive in posting documents on a project that may receive many public records requests. This software is a tool for staff to track and manage requests by delegating requests to appropriate departments for handling, reminding staff of deadlines via email or screen prompts, developing letter templates for quick and consistent communication with the requester, tracking staff time, building in a fee calculator based on city policy, and showing the work history of requests as an audit tool. The tool will be used to reduce time and cost when responding to public records requests. There is a second section, which is a social media portion of the subscription, which archives social media posts so that they can be searched, exported, and directly provided as an attachment to a public records request. This software complies with the original format portion when being submitted as part of a public records request response. So the cost of the software requires a one-time setup fee of $1,500 and an annual cost of $3,000 for the public records request software and $1,200 annual cost for the social media archive component. Staff is requesting the contracts to be from December 9, 2015 to December 31, 2016, with the option to renew on an annual basis. Making this contract effective now would allow staff to work with the program for site configuration and training. That way it will be up and running the first part of 2016. This proposal was presented to the Finance Committee on September 30th, and the Finance Committee directed staff to bring this forward for consideration. And then I also wanted to note that I know that there was some conversations that this is a web portal, so this up here is what it would look like on the website. So if you go to the website and there's a public records request portion on the website, and it'll say click here for the public records request portal. And when you do that, this is what would come up. And so it's my understanding that there may be some website updates in 2016, and if so, the work that's being done now will not have an impact on future website. It's just basically a link that goes onto our website, and then once we get a new website, then we just re-put that link up there, and everything in the background still works. And then some other information I wanted to share with you is I did reach out to a couple of cities, the city of Pullman, Port Angeles, city of Olympia, and the city of Wenatchee, and asked them how they like the services. They also have this web portal. This city of Olympia has had it since 2009. They're very happy with it. It streamlines their processes. They have about 20 people that get into the system in and out, and it is a way for the records manager or the public records manager to monitor the request. Now, granted, they probably have about 600 requests in a month, but the other cities, I believe, city of Port Angeles and the city of Pullman, they have about 80 to 120 a month. So it's not just for the bigger cities. And I did share out some documents to the council earlier this afternoon, just showing what our history is. And so right now, and both of those included the police department's public records requests from the other agencies. And so right now, the city of Port Orchard, including the police department, year to date, we have processed about 249 public records requests. And it's about 50% police department and 50% the other department, other departments. And believe that is all I have right now, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one
Yes,
question, Brandy.
Mr.
In
Cross.
the council agenda, it indicates that there's attachments, and there doesn't appear to be attachments with at least electronic. It's a contract proposal and email from the attorney, and I know the attorney raised some concerns, but I don't have a copy of that with this.
Oh, that should have been placed, the attorney-client one should have been placed in your inbox. That one was not distributed through.
It's not an attachment to this. It says it's an attachment, so
Oh,
I was
okay.
looking for it there. So, all right.
Okay.
Brandy, I do have a couple questions if you've answered John's. And it sounds like we're purchasing software and we're assuming that it's going to be able to run on our current computer system.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know that it can?
Yes, I would assume it can.
Okay.
We haven't had, during any of the conversations, it doesn't sound like we're going to have any issues. It's a web-based program. You just access it through the internet.
Well, when it's called a Porto, I thought, well, maybe it's hosted somewhere else on a faster or more up-to-date site, and we're just providing a link to it.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
then on the other hand, it sounds like maybe we're purchasing the use of the software on someone else's server? Or?
It's both.
Okay.
So all the documents won't be housed on our server. It's a cloud-based program, if that makes sense. So they'll, go ahead.
It sounds like one of the goals for this was to provide the records that have been provided in case other people are interested in what's been provided to the first requester. I guess my question is, in terms of something where records are exempt or privileged, for example, like some of the police, the personally confidential information, would that be placed there with the exemptions also attached explaining why certain information is not provided?
Yeah, we will provide it has the capability of providing a redaction and exemption log stating why we're withholding the documents.
Okay.
Yeah, and it actually, this software program also has an option to implement a redaction program, but right now we have our redaction program pretty streamlined. So, maybe next year we can look at the process and see if we can implement that later. But right now we didn't think it was a good time to do that portion.
Brandy, does this program work with our emails, or is this just other data?
We provide documents into the portal. So it can be done in an original format, like an MSG, which would be our email. So it's all formats.
Okay.
Are we going to do a motion on this, or are we just going to talk about it?
Should.
Either way, I haven't heard a motion yet, but.
Yeah, I haven't either. I can make it. I move to approve a contract with WeBack for a public records request and social media tracking software as presented. And I guess my comment on this is...
I'll second that.
Okay, now we have a motion and a second. Open for comments. Mr. Childs.
My comment on it is, I know that getting this kind of software, I know we've done it with Springbrook for the finance department, is really a benefit to you, Randy, and to what we do. And I don't want to say but I guess I'm going to have to say but. And the but is that I know that Brianna is working hard to try and see if we can't get our public records request law changed to be a little more beneficial to the cities and counties, which the public records request legislation is very onerous, and that's why we have to have this kind of stuff. But I think the thing that was most troubling in this is Carol's comments, and you saw them, so you know what I'm going to say. But her comments basically saying that I've never seen a contract like this and certainly can't recommend that the city sign it. And what she's not talking about the software, though. And so to your benefit or credit or whatever, that's not the problem. The problem is the contract itself. And it's not very user-friendly. It's almost like adversarial. Is the way I saw it. And so I don't think I'm going to vote. I think I'd like to see this come back with a better contract. That's where I'm at with it. But I do like the idea that you're going to get assistance and stuff and hope that the law gets changed and all that. But at this point, I see Carol's comment making me say, hey, better wait.
Okay. Mr. Johnson.
One of the other comments in this, I saw where that the terms on this allow for up to an 8% increase if we go out with an annual contract. Did you get any information on if we commit to a longer term, being able to limit the amounts of the increase?
Yes, I did speak to the vendor, and I asked him historically what has been the increase in the contract. It said 8%. He said the last few years it's been only about 5%. He said if we were to entertain a 3-year contract, then the cap would be up to 3%. So again, if we were to extend it out for 3 years, it would be a 3% on this, up to 3% on the second year and the third year. He said, I asked him, how do they determine how they're going to set that increase? And he says that it's basically cost of living increase. And he said that they run the numbers and they typically know a few months before the end of the year what the increase is going to be for the following year. But he said historically it's been about 5% for the people that just do annual agreements.
So follow-up question on that. If I remember correctly, this is a 60-day out.
Yes.
And so why wouldn't we take 3-year contract versus a 1-year contract if in either case?
If you read it, it's 60 days in advance of the normal renewal.
Renewal, okay.
If it's less than, or if it's after the normal renewal, we're obligated to pay the entire year. Okay. And
So
my
it wasn't
question,
a 60-day
somewhat
out,
related, is if we do a 3-year term, does that mean we're obligating to 3 years? Or it's going to be an annual renewal for 3 years?
I did ask him that question, and he said yes. So it would be billable in 1-year increments. Yes.
But it's still, we got to recognize that if you want to get out of it, you have to give them 60 days notice before that renewal anniversary.
So if things aren't going too well by September, I'll make sure that notice is in. But I've spoke to 3 of the agencies that has this, and it's streamlined their process. And my goal is to, right now, my office handles the DCD, the Public Works, the Finance Department, and the Clerk's Office, and any request that has requests for emails. And then the Police Department does their own. My goal is to get everybody uniformed and on one system, so that way, as the records manager, I can track what requests are come in. Ultimately, I'm the responsible, even for the Police Department's request. If they miss their 5-day notice, the city's liable for that, and this is a tool to reduce our liability. So that's my goal.
Is there an appetite for a longer term before I make a motion to?
Well, what my feeling on that is this is a new contract for us. It's a new program we haven't worked with before. And we put money in the budget for a new website. And we are doing some evaluation right now of our IT department. And so I personally would be supportive of a 1-year contract and seeing how it all works for us. And then when we renew it for a 3-year contract. The risk is the difference between a 3% and a 5% increase at the end of the year.
Actually, 3% or up to an 8%.
Or up to, right. So the difference,
5%,
which is 5%, and 5% of 4,200 is about, what, $200?
I did that math.
I guess to flip that around, Beck, what would be the harm in agreeing to a 3-year contract as long as you have the ability to cancel it in a year?
I'm not sure that's the way I read it. I thought you could, the renewal then would be in 3 years.
Well, that's what I asked, and she said she asked, and it was an annual renewal.
Correct.
So you can get out of it every year.
Correct. It's
With
billable
60-day notice.
yearly.
With the 60 days in advance of the anniversary date.
We need to confirm that.
That doesn't
I
make
can confirm
sense.
Well, I know it doesn't make sense. That's why I was asking if they're going to allow that, then why wouldn't you do let's do a 10-year contract and get it down to 1%.
I agree with you. I just didn't, I didn't want us to be locked into something that,
For 3 years.
for 3 years.
And during that conversation, he did say that if the council chose to do a 1 year, the agreement right now is an auto annual renewal. So 2016, if for some reason, it didn't get brought before the council in November, it would kick in an auto renewal, and then I would be on the hook for paying it in 2017 because I didn't put that 60-day notice in. So it's billable annual, whether you're at a 3-year contract or a 1-year contract. I know it's goofy, but that's how they have it. So
The other goofy is if we did a 1 year and it terminates in a year, and we went back to them and said, gee, we'd like to do it another 1 year thing, but we don't want to pay 8%.
Right.
What would they do?
Right.
And I guess my other question, Brandy, would be to you. I noticed that you said you followed the outline in the resolution. Did we do any additional research, like talking to MSRC, to see if there was any other cities that use something other than this? Is this the only company that's out there that does this?
There is not. There's many companies out there, and I did reach out to Next Request is another one agency that does this, as well as FOIA Review. They're another agency, and that we reached out to. And when we go to our clerks annual conference, as well as our Washington Association of Public Records Officers training, you always have vendors or sponsors, and many of these types of vendors are there. And the reason why we reached out to this particular vendor is because it was actually, there was a session that was in our Washington Association of Public Records Officer training that specifically talked about this, and the city of Kirkland is the one that presented it and really encouraged the other cities to invest in this one. So that's why we chose this one. But to do our due diligence, we also reached out to the other vendors and asked them, and they're all, one was $3,000 as well, but it didn't have the capability of the requesters to come in and check on their their request through the portal, and the city wasn't able to determine if they've touched the request to see if it was abandoned. And then the other one was a little bit cheaper. It was $2,400 a year, but they did not have the reporting structure that we wanted. They didn't have the templates that we wanted. They didn't have, I think theirs was limited to a certain amount of users. So that's why we, again, went with this current vendor.
This company provides all the things that you were looking for where the others did not.
Correct. Yes. They were the most qualified.
I'd like to offer an amendment here with some caveats to it. So I'd like to offer an amendment that states that we pursue a 3-year contract, provided that 3-year contract has the language we've discussed here with the 60-day out.
Well, on the annual renewals.
And the annual renewal is capped at 3% in that 3-year agreement.
I second your amendment.
Plus,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We have a motion and a second to make an amendment that we look into sign a 3-year contract. That contract would be capped at no more than 3% a year.
Provided it also has a
And
60-day out clause at the annual renewal, as we've been led to believe.
So I'm going to complicate matters even more. I agree with that, but I'd like to add one more thing. If you look at the termination clause, section 5.
Normally, what we'll do is work through this motion, and then add.
Great, thank you.
So does that, well, if it pertains to this motion, though.
Then we could make a friendly amendment, I guess, to do it all at once. So go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead and tell us what you're thinking.
So if you look at the termination clause of this, it says either party may terminate this agreement without cause.
Right.
And that's problematic to us.
True.
Because there's no remedy to us if they were to terminate. So if we extend this to 3 years and they want to terminate without cause, it talks nothing about our remedy. And so I think we need a remedy issue within the section number 5 termination, that if they choose to terminate without clause, then there's something back to us. So I think there's some work that needs to be done. This contract is definitely a little weak when it comes to remedies and the termination issues.
Plus, when it says with termination, if we needed the data from them, we would have to pay $1,500.
But the data resides with us. It doesn't.
No,
it's on their site.
And they could see that that's either party terminating it.
Let me see. I thought the data remained with us.
If requested and for a cost of no more than $1,500, we'll provide the customer with an electronic copy of all the customer's data.
Oh,
$1,500. And the company could choose to terminate. So we still have to pay that if we needed that.
Right.
It keeps adding up. And it's not looking right.
Well, I guess the question there is the city depending on this service to archive our records, or would we have a copy
No,
of it?
this isn't to archive the records. This is just a secondary copy that would be available to the public.
So we may not, in this case, we may not care that they're not going to give us a copy of what they have because we would have a copy of it ourselves.
However, I believe that it would be prudent of us to maintain a copy of exactly what they have or retrieve our data from them.
Well, we would know what we're giving them because we have a copy of it. It's not like we'd give them a copy
Correct.
and then lose ours.
No, correct. But I think we would want it back from them. I don't think we want it resident with them.
How urgent is this?
Say, maybe we should throw this into a committee
Just a
and get all
really,
those questions
It
in.
is.
It's just a bad contract.
It
I mean, if you
is.
talk about cause, there's no even cause language. You know, we can terminate without cause, or if we terminate without cause, but it doesn't define what cause is.
So, Brandy, part of this is coming from 2015 money. So this is a Mr. Martin question. If we don't do this evening, 1,500, I mean, we have money coming from this year's budget and next year's budget to make this work. If we punt here this evening, and this goes into January, what effect?
Not appreciable amount.
Okay.
Okay, we still have the amended motion, and that's the one you made, Mr. Patansu.
I think somebody should make a motion to send this to a committee.
Well,
I agree.
if you withdraw your motion.
Well, either that or we'll vote on it and vote it down and then move it, make a new.
I'll just withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Second agrees.
Okay. That motion has been withdrawn. We're back to the main motion.
Which is the appropriate committee?
Finance?
I was afraid you were going to say that.
I just can't see, it's not public property, and it's not economic development, and it's not utilities.
How about hotel motel?
L tax.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we refer this to the Finance Committee for further investigation and review and bring back a recommendation.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Mr. Glesson made it to send this to the Finance Committee for more information and a recommendation to be brought back. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Just as a point of clarification, Mr. Patanso withdrew his amendment, but I don't believe Mr. Childs withdrew his original motion.
That's true. That's true.
Very good
We
point.
never.
True.
The only thing that we can do is table it, but you can't put it into it. So unless Mr. Childs was to remove his motion.
What's in it for me?
Well, why don't you want
I
to?
can withdraw. I'll be a good player.
And then I just have a point of clarification. I think it would be helpful to the Finance Committee for Brandy to work with this vendor to redefine this contract with some of the things we've discussed here this evening.
Yeah, but who's going to come up with all the questions that we need to ask?
Well, I think we asked a number of them, and I think
You
do you
think
have
you
some
have it pretty
direction,
much?
Brandy, to work with the vendor and then bring a
Bring back
somewhat
A
of a
report
product
back
to the
answers.
Finance Committee that they can review, and then from that recommendation, it'll come back to this body. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Has Jerry removed, have you withdrawn your motion yet?
Pretty much.
He did withdraw it, and who was his second?
And has the second agreed?
Second agrees, so
Who was
that
the
motion's
second, Brandon?
withdrawn. All right, we have no motion
That
on the
was you.
floor, except for the one that you just made. Would you repeat it again?
Okay, my motion, if the other one has been cleared, is that we refer this to the Finance Committee for additional research and review, and for them to bring back a recommendation.
Second.
All right. Other discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Clausen's motion is the one we're going to be voting on. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, that motion carries.
For $4,000.
Approval of November 17th, 2015 council work study minutes. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve the November 17th work study meeting minutes.
Okay, a motion. Mr. Childs, are you seconding the motion?
I can, yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Recuse.
Let the motion, or the record show that
Abstain.
that Ms. Lucarelli is recusing herself. That motion carries. Okay, let's see. Okay. Yes, Ms. Ashby, could you tell us about discussion of appointment of 2016 vacant council position? please?
Yes, with the election certification, the end of November, the Port Orchard City Council will have position number 3 vacant the 1st of January. And so I was wanting council to establish a timeline and procedures for filling that vacancy. I believe our decision points are basically a time frame of when we can accomplish what we need to, and I did have Brandy provide everyone with just an outline I had done indicating that we could perhaps advertise the vacancy starting this Friday, which is the 11th of December, and asking for letters of interest. Have those come back to us no later than Monday, January 4th. And then I was, so that's the time frame I was looking at. I was hoping then, or offering, that we could perhaps interview that first week of January, and then have second interviews if they were necessary before our council meeting on January 12th. And that would allow us to make a recommendation or fill the appointment on the evening of the 12th, so that the new council member would be seated for our January 19th work study session. That may be a little aggressive, but I would personally like to see the vacancy filled sooner rather than later. I also personally, again, other decision points are when we receive the letters of interest back, are we going to interview all of the applicants? Are we going to interview a certain number of the applicants? And then who's going to interview? Are we going to have an interview panel of the entire council, or are we going to have a subcommittee? And then, is there any particular information that we would want included in the letters of interest? Those were some of the discussion points I was hoping that we could, make some decisions on this evening.
Historically, it's been the entire council that's set, no?
No, it hasn't.
At least the last time it was.
Last time was, but
Okay.
the 2 times before that, it was a committee that was established by the council.
Okay.
I think this is a significant appointment, and I would recommend that the entire council be a part of that process versus the subcommittee. I think there's a lot of content that's going to happen during those interviews, and I would like to see everyone have the opportunity to be a part of that process.
I'm seeing head nods. The other question, I think what's important for me is the letter of interest. I would like to see certain elements in there. I would like the letter of I would like the applicants to make sure they all include a resume. I would like them to answer questions such as, why are you interested in serving on the city council and what do you hope to accomplish? Describe the strengths and experiences you would bring to the council. What do you think are the most pressing issues currently before the council and why? Describe your community involvement to include your roles and dates of service. Those are just 4 questions that I came up with that I would like to see in the letter of interest, rather than the letter of interest just saying I would like to be in the city council and sign their name to them. I had hoped to get some more information from all of the applicants prior to interview. And I don't know if that's important to everyone. It was just something that I had thought would be.
So if you're gathering additional information, are you then wanting to vet the candidates before the interview process?
Well, that's the other question. Are we going to interview all of the candidates, or are we going to interview a certain number of the candidates?
Last time we interviewed all of them.
That's
as a
correct.
courtesy.
Yeah. And I don't have a preference. I'm just asking.
I think it should be all of them as well, unless you have some criteria that you're going to use that says this person's disqualified because.
I like your supplementary questions, but I'm thinking that's also information that could be asked in the interview. And so we could get it both. We could both get in the letter and, I guess, in the interview. There should be no surprise about the questions we're asking, so I think it's good that you're putting it out there. I liked what you wrote about your thoughts, in that the applicants must be a registered voter. I mean, that's common sense, and have lived in the city a minimum of 1 year. Ironically, though, when you're running for office, you do not have to have been a resident of the city for a year before registering. So this qualification of having lived in the city a year would be
Comes out of the RCW.
Our city is different, where we don't require people to live in our city a year before they register for a position.
But they have to live in the city a year before they can file to be a council member.
No, they don't. And we can vet that later.
Is that a second-class city?
Those two are in conflict, the city's thing and the RCW, if I remember right. Interesting.
So what I'm wondering is, do we want a qualification that would be different than from what we would have for a normal applicant?
But Fred, one thing is, when you file, you still have that period of time until you actually are certified to become. So you do have a period of time, which is different than none at all.
Brandy, can you check the RCW real quick? Because I thought I went to the RCW before I wrote this.
I think you probably did, and our city is different than that. We're a little unique in that. It could be because we're a second class.
And it could be.
But
the other things is that you have to be 18. All that I put there was what I believe I read out of the RCW, that you had to be a registered voter, you had to live in the city a year, and you had to be over 18, and you cannot be a convicted felon.
I think being a registered voter, you have to be 18. So yes, we would get that in there. And that's probably just a minor point.
Well, no, it's our criteria. I mean, it's if we don't require them to live in the city a year, then we don't. But the other things that I thought was important when we solicit the letters is I would like to see a statement in that solicitation that describes the amount of meetings we attend, that they need to be available the second, third, and fourth Tuesdays of every month, and that we're typically assigned 2 council committees to be on. I think who the applicants need to understand the time commitment that's involved in being in the city council, and I think that should be part of the solicitation letter.
Or potentially it's just part of the interview process.
It could be, but it may keep someone from submitting the letter too if they realize the time commitment. They may choose not to go through that process.
Yeah, that information is not harmful at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not criteria, it's just general information to say, hey, this is...
And we can see if they read it when you interview them.
You know, I think we could probably ask, legal counsel just to define, I don't think we need to make this process any more difficult or complicated or to raise the bar over somebody filing for an election.
Right.
Anyone would have that same exact opportunity. And, so I would ask that we get legal counsel to define exactly what that is, whether it's 1 year, whether it's, 18 years of age, all those details will be worked out. And then from there, I think it's up to the interview committee to ask those certain questions and we can vet it from there. But I would believe that we should not make this a steeper hill to climb for someone to apply for this appointment than it is to apply to run in the general election.
And I guess the only other question I would ask the city clerk is, how soon can we advertise it? Obviously, we don't have to wait for the position to be vacant to advertise it.
No.
Okay.
No. That's why what I really was hoping we could do tonight was kind of outline our process and establish a date to solicit applications so that we've got that process started. And if we got it in the Port Orchard Independent on Friday, the 11th, they would have 3 weeks before we would ask for the letters to be returned to us by April 4th. January 4th. April. God, I'm already in the spring. And then the other question is, could we, as part of that, indicate when we may be able to interview? I mean, can we look at our calendars and see if there's a date that first week of January that we would be able to interview? And put that.
I would just like to point out that the deadline for Friday's paper has passed for posting that, I believe, and so it would have to wait until the following Tuesday if that affects your timelines at all.
Okay.
That's correct, right, Brandy?
If you look at the county's
so the
website
soonest-
for qualifications, it says that the mayor and city council candidates must be registered voters of the city at the time of filing. Paulsville candidates must also have been residents of the city for a period of at least 1 year preceding the election. Mayor and city council candidates may reside anywhere within the city, RCW 3523. So if you want to take that as an authority, but checking the RCW would probably be.
Yeah. I can confirm that if that's one of the requirements that you want. I'll make sure it's consistent with the RCWs. And then the soonest date for publication would be Friday the 18th. That would go into the Port Orchard Independent. However, if we decide to publish in Kitsap Sun, it's within a few days. And then, of course, it would go on our website immediately and then sent out to the people who receive our agenda distribution list would be also the same day it would be posted on the city's website.
We should post it in both papers.
So are we good with that timeline as soon as the city clerk's office can get the data together, post it?
I'm fine with it.
And your recommended expiration for that is what?
January 4th, which is a Monday.
So the 18th. I think in a normal calendar month, I think that works. But I think with the holidays, people they're traveling, they're visiting. So basically from the 18th to the 4th, we're dealing with significant holiday time. And
Right, but we were thinking that she could get it in the Kitsap Sun by the 11th. And I agree with you. If the 18th is the start date, I think 2 weeks at this time of year is inappropriate.
Right.
And I do believe, and I can confirm, it's been a while since we've used this this portion, but we can advertise on the Port Orchard Independent's website. I think there's no restriction on, it may be like a 24-hour notice type of thing, but they can put it on their website relatively a lot quicker than we can put it in their published newspaper. So that might be an avenue, so that way local Port Orchard Independent residents could get an online version of it quicker than the printed version.
Is it going to really hurt, other than missing the work study, is it going to hurt anything to add a week to this process? Just bump everything at the 11th, then the 13th.
And the appointment by the 26th.
And then they're,
And appoint on the 26th.
and then they're appointed by the 26th.
Well, they're appointed on the 26th
Right,
because we wouldn't have a meeting prior to that.
right. I don't see a,
If we're going to do that, I want to extend it one more week because I'll be missing a meeting in there, and I would like to be part of this process, please. There's going to be a lot of vacations.
Well, there were 10
Then if we
last
do
time.
that, there's no meeting the first week of February, so we'd be delaying it one additional week.
I will be out of
add a
town
month
that
to
week.
it, yeah.
Yeah, so see, this is one of the reasons.
I mean, we're not asking for a lot here. There's some
No.
pretty basic questions in a resume. Maybe this timeline isn't unrealistic.
I think it's an ambitious timeline, and I think it's a good conversation starter, but I would be more comfortable maybe with
Was it your
another week.
original goal to have them appointed on the meeting of the 26th?
No, my original goal was to have them appointed the meeting of the 12th so that they could be sworn in and do what they needed to do and be active at the work study on the 19th.
If we allowed them the additional week, I mean, it's not like we have to screen the applicants, we're going to interview everyone. So if they turned in their letters of interest and we received them by the 11th, we set up a time that week to do interviews. You still have plenty of time to develop a recommendation. It's 2 weeks before the next meeting.
Right, to do it on the 26th.
26th.
Correct. Cindy was just saying that she
You're going to be
wanted.
gone on the 26th. So if we were to do it by the 4th, was it your hope that we would make the appointment on the 12th then?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay, I misunderstood.
That was my hope. My hope was that we could interview the latter part of the week of the 4th, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of that week. And then if we needed second interviews, to do them before our council meeting on the 12th.
Could we make the appointment on the 19th?
I don't know if we can make it at a work study.
I thought what I heard the attorney say, as long as we publish it, we can make decisions.
That's what I've heard.
Okay. Yeah.
My goal was simply to get us to talk about it and come up with a process and a timeline.
Yeah. Do it before 9 o'clock tonight.
Exactly.
Good goal.
Following up on what Sean said, I'm curious, Brandy, if we have the announcement from our last appointment. I like that we're asking for a letter, resume, and supplemental questions, but I'm wondering, what did we do in the last appointment?
The last appointment, let me.
Do you remember?
I have provided the.
We asked questions.
Did we ask all of this?
In fact, I thought we had a follow-up interview.
We had an interview.
Because
it was all one day.
I was out of town when you guys did that.
Right, so we originally.
Deliberations
Was that deliberations when you
afterwards,
appointed?
but we only had
Cartwright?
1 day of interviews. And then we waited until you returned from your travel so that we could all deliberate it.
And what was
That's the way
requested
I
was
remember
just.
it.
Yeah, I know I was gone through part of it, so.
And what was requested was just a letter of interest stating qualifications to the city of Port Orchard. That's all that was sought. And then when the applications came in and all the interviews were done, the first round, I believe there was a second round for the top 3 candidates, and then then the top 3 candidates were provided a questionnaire that they had to answer, I believe. Let me double check on that one. But I think that's how the second round went.
Could have been.
But that might have changed because I think you guys went into deliberation. So, but there was a two-step process. Interviewed everybody, went to a second round, and then the second round I can clarify on how we did that because I can't remember if you guys just asked questions again or if they provided a supplemental.
I'm fine with the letter of interest as the initial because during the interview, some of the questions that you can ask are those that you have mentioned. Getting them in advance if you're not going to use them for any kind of criteria to deselect or not select or to select. Seems like you really don't need them in advance.
The resume is pretty important, though.
Well, the resume would be important in the letter of interest. I think those two are important, but answering the questions, I think you could save that for the interview.
Well, I don't even know if the resume should be mandatory. I mean, if someone doesn't put one in, that's going to be a strike, but you don't have to submit a resume to run in the general election. I mean.
But this isn't a general election. This is
Right.
we're the voters of Port Orchard,
Correct.
and there's only 7 of us.
6.
Yeah.
Or 6 of us in that case.
And I personally am going to speak strongly to have the supplemental questions as part of the letter because I would like to be able to read that and understand or know a little bit more about the applicants before I interview them. And I think the interview would be more meaningful because the interview, depending on how many applicants we have, last time you interviewed 10 in one day, that's a lengthy process. And so you have very little time. So I would like some preparatory information.
If I remember correctly, when I was appointed a few years back, there were 3 or 4 questions.
When you were appointed a few years back, I participated in that also, and we submitted a letter of interest, and then we were given, I believe it was 8 questions to answer. And I do have a copy of those questions at home. I didn't bring it with me tonight.
I don't have copies of the questions.
It was part of the packet, and I do.
That we
if you
were
have
all
a
given
printed-
last night, weren't we?
It was part of the council packet tonight as an attachment, so hopefully printed copies was provided to the council members that uses their iPads. If not, I apologize for that, but the councils that receive paper packets should have received a printed version.
We all got a printed version in our mailbox.
Okay. The
No.
questions for 2000?
No, no. I received it last night. It's not like I saved this for 10 years, Rob.
Okay.
I received it last night.
I'm feeling better about myself then.
In my packet.
There, when I try to bring this up.
That page is missing on the website. It's a 404 error, but
I think
Right.
it was brought to our attention this morning, and we did correct the link, so we might just have to refresh it.
Yeah,
No.
I just hit on it and it doesn't work.
there may be a different link that we're not getting.
But if we could move forward with our timeline and what we want the letter of interest to be.
I like asking them questions. In 2006, there were 8.
And more detailed.
And I do have a copy. Would you mind, do you want me to read those questions or not? Okay.
They show up electronically.
Doesn't on mine.
These are good. Beck's
Yeah.
questions are great.
Yeah. Well, let's, I guess, go through the basic. Are we comfortable with only giving them till the 4th to submit their letter of interest? Or are we wanting to make sure that because of the holidays they have adequate time? I'm comfortable with either one. It's not like you're
Yeah, so am
applying
I.
for a
Yeah.
a high-powered job that you have to get letters of resume or letters of recommendation and everything else. You just that's 2 of us.
I'd be
Everybody else
comfortable
seems
with
to be
the
pretty
4th.
quiet.
I'm comfortable with the 4th.
I'd be comfortable with the 4th.
I don't have a vote, so I'm not going to have an opinion.
Oh, yeah, we'll ignore you.
You don't count. Okay, we agreed on the 4th.
Agreed on the 4th, and did we then agree to advertise it as soon as we can?
Yes. Yes.
And then what do we want in the advertisement?
I'm fine with what you recommended. I mean,
Okay.
If you want those questions, and fine.
You've done a good job.
Yeah.
And then,
And so do you want the Councilmember Ashby's proposed or the
Yes.
8 from 2006?
No, the council
The 4.
The 4 from, okay.
proposal.
Okay.
We gotta have something for the interview. I mean, won't
That's
give all
right.
the questions away.
and then, do we want to select a date that we could do the interviews on?
I have my calendar open in front of me, so
The 6th.
I would recommend the 6th, 7th, or 8th.
I would probably skip on the 8th, but 6th and 7th.
That works.
Actually, the 7th, if we're gonna do this an all-day long type thing, I've got a conflict on the 6th that I can't get out of. The 7th I'm wide open.
Fred?
That's okay.
That's 2 for the 7th.
Yeah, and I'm good on the 7th.
3
Cindy
for the
and
7th.
I don't have anything until 6.
That's 4 for the 7th. Sean?
I could probably make it work. I could make it work.
Okay. So that's 5. Jerry doesn't count.
And I'd be happy to send an email to Councilmember-elect Clancy to see if he's available on that date.
That'd be great.
And then we could publish that in our solicitation so that the applicants would know that that would be the interview date.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Now, the only qualifier to that is if we got 42 applicants, it's not possible to get them all done in one day.
That is correct.
So.
5 minutes each.
Yeah.
We'll call it speed interviews.
Walk in that door and out this door, and we just did the interview. Okay. Anything
Yeah, I
else
think we could leave it a little bit, open-ended, that we intend to do interviews on the 7th, but in the event that we have too many applicants, then,
Yeah.
We'll extend that to be determined.
One of the criteria last time, it's a public, since the whole council's there, it's a public meeting. And we'd asked that anybody that was a candidate didn't sit in the room, so they weren't hearing the questions
Ahead of
prior to
time.
their interview. So just a thought there. Because, you got a public meeting because you have
Right.
the entire council.
Right. Well, I would agree with that.
All right. Any other discussion? Got everything answered?
I think we do. We have a timeline, and we have, Brandy, were you in the room when we suggested the solicitation should indicate the time commitment? I mean, that we meet the second, third, and fourth Tuesdays of the month, and that council people sit on a couple of committees, and that takes additional time.
I was not, but I was going to rewatch the video, so I would have caught that. But and I did look for a sample for other jurisdictions, and there's a sample language that has something similar that I'll make sure that it has those dates and that it's a time commitment and about how many hours a week or month.
Okay,
I can put that in there.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to reports of council committees and finance. Mr. Glosson.
Nothing to report, sir.
Public properties, Mr. Kuchardi.
I am not on that committee. Not yet.
You're the chair of that committee.
I am.
By virtue of the chair you're sitting
I
in.
have no report.
Okay, thank you. No pressure or anything here. Economic development, tourism, Ms. Ashby.
Economic Development Tourism has not met since our last meeting, and neither has Public Properties.
Okay, Utility Sewer Advisory, Mr. Patonson.
No report, but I do have two good of the order items when we get to that at the end, if I could.
Okay. Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, Mr. Chang.
Report.
Chimes and Lights, Ms. Lucarelli.
Well, we had a fabulous festival of chimes and lights in spite of the rain. The band, the musical groups, the volunteers that helped, it was incredible. It was cheerful, beautiful out there. A big thank you to Public Works and the great job you guys did. George, Bill, and all the work put in by that team. A big thank you for the staff and all the work that they did, and especially with our meetings. And a big thank you for Kitsap Bank being this presenting sponsor and all they contributed with opening up the bank as a hospitality area, the parking lot, and all of the beautiful lights that they put out just for this event. So it was wonderful. We'll have more information forthcoming, but we will have a recap meeting. It's scheduled right now for January, but we're going to reschedule it for February, and we'll get that out there so we can find out when a good time is for everyone to meet. Again, thank you to everyone who helped.
All right, outside agency committee reports. Ms. Ashby.
Yes, the KRCC met December 1st. We held a study session with the planning directors prior to the business meeting. Consequently, our business meeting was condensed. We approved our budget and work plans for 2016. Our next meeting is January 5th, 2016. And the KRCC and PSRC's Transpol meetings are this next Thursday. And I will go back to Economic Development and Public Properties, and I believe we are deferring December's meetings. Is that correct, Nick?
We've confirmed for Economic Development, it's up to the chair to cancel Public Properties, and so Councilmember Kuchardi, I don't know.
I don't know that
we just set up his new email, so I don't even know if he's been checking that yet or not. But if you'd like to cancel the meeting, nothing is urgent, and we can delay it until January.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Considering the circumstances.
Thank you.
Didn't KRCC also elect the officers for next year?
Yes, they did.
And who was that? Slate?
Yes, I was selected as the chair of KRCC for the next year, and Wayne Roth from Bainbridge Island was selected as the vice chair.
That's what I thought I remembered. Thank you.
Any other outside agency reports? Yes.
I would just say that, echoing what John Powers said, that fourth quarter meeting is up at the commissioners' chambers. And but the part about the reception for KETA is that Kitsap Bank starting at 5, and the whole council actually is invited, and that invitation comes through Kitsap Bank itself.
Okay, thank you. Mayor's report had a Housing Kitsap long board meeting, and then we had a retreat. And Stuart Grogan is the new executive director. He's been an executive director 1 year, and he had a presentation on, it took one whole wall of all the things that they're involved in and they're doing right now. I was very impressed. I can't believe the amount of work that they've gotten done in the last year. So I would probably spend an hour trying to tell you all the things and still forget a lot of them. But anyhow, the KETA meeting is coming up this week, and CENTCOM 911 is coming up this week. So I'll talk about that later, the next council meeting. So that's all I have. Department heads, Mr. Dorsey, do you have something for us?
I have nothing.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you. If the Finance Committee so desires to have a Finance Committee meeting here in January, I'll be here throughout the holiday period. If we wait till after January 4th to have a Finance Committee, it'll only be John Clausen and I, because he'll be only remaining member, which will make him a majority. So I'll just say, what do you want? And that'll be over.
That's not a bad idea.
If you want to have a meeting, let me know. And
definitely streamline things, huh?
Yeah, that'll work out really good.
Here to explained the date.
Yeah, and we get along well, so hey. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Bond.
Yeah, real quickly, I just wanted to let everybody know that the wayfinding sign package has been completed and is up on the website for viewing, and so the bid specs are ready to go for early next year if we want to bid the first couple of signs. So I would encourage you to take a look at what was put together. That's all. Thanks.
Okay. Clerk Reinerson.
Yes. So I wanted the council to know that the staff was waiting for the council to adopt the fee schedule for the residential parking permits before we sent out notice to the residents. So we have the postcards printed and ready to be mailed tomorrow morning out to all the residents that have a current residential parking permit. And then the last couple months, as residents have come in to renew, we've also given them a notice that some of the changes that were coming to them. So a handful of them know that yes, there's going to be a fee and it's limited down to 2 years. So we're trying to get that out to them as well. And then also I wanted to just make a little statement because it was on the consent agenda, and Officer Randy Ernst was unable to attend tonight's meeting, and he wanted me to extend his sincere apology to the council members for not able to attend this meeting. And he wants to send a huge thank you for giving Amber, who is our canine officer, the opportunity to serve the city of Port Orchard over the past 10 years, and to try and iterate that the city's illegal narcotics issues have been a success in the last 10 years, and that he will sincerely miss the opportunity to have Amber as part of the program. So just for the public, that the city of Port Orchard had a canine officer who is Amber. She's been in here for 10 years, and due to age, the officer, which is the handler, is requesting that Amber retire, and that the ownership and liability and care be transferred to the handler, which is Officer Randy Ernst. So the council earlier, through the consent agenda process, approved that. So just wanted to relay that message from the officer to the council and the mayor. And one last thing that hopefully everybody's seen, that the Good Neighbor Award has been noticed, should be in the paper shortly, has been sent out to the agenda distribution list, a press release, and it's December 16th here at City Hall at 6 p.m. that the council will be touring the city and voting for the best business, neighborhood, and residents. So I encourage you, now that it's after Thanksgiving, to get your lights up and have a festive holiday, I guess. That's all I have.
Okay, and I forgot to mention that work study session is December 15th at 7 in the chambers here. Public is welcome to sit in. And citizen comments. Anybody? Okay.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, Gary Anderson. I just wanted to speak to the impact fee deferral fee for a moment. I wanted to come out in opposition to that on behalf of myself and probably the general development community. And I also did speak to Mike Eliason from the Board of Realtors earlier today. We're talking about several issues, and this came up. And even though I'm not authorized to speak on the Realtors' behalf at this time, he did tell me that he was intending to oppose that too. And it just sort of feels like that we're applying a fee where a fee has not previously been necessary. Everybody that comes in for a building permit understands that they have the opportunity to defer the impact fee, but it's going to get paid because they're not going to get an occupancy permit unless the fee is paid. So now we're going to offer them an option where they can either pay the impact fee up front, or if they want to defer it, they have to fill out an application and they pay a $300 fee for this application and to file a lien against the property so that they can defer this fee. And without using a harsher term, it just seems like coercion to me to take additional fees that previously haven't been necessary. So that's just my editorial comment about that. And then I applaud the city for taking on this public records request topic. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but if you go to the county and make a public disclosure request, information request for something, our records for Kitsap County are stored over in Fife or Federal Way or someplace over there in a shed. And if you, they'll tell you that it's going to take 2 to 4 weeks before you can get an answer back on your request for information. So me, looking to find out how a project was previously approved in the county through the hearing examiner, I may have to wait 4 weeks to find out that information. So if the city can do a better job with this. And so I applaud you for looking into this and trying to make it a better system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please.
I also wanted to kind of talk about the fees that were just put in. I'm in opposition to Mr. Anderson only because I feel that we have a double standard on our council as far as when there's things that affect the citizens. It's really hard for us to get any information, and we don't know about it like 18 months before we get notices, and by that time your minds are made up on the water sewer deal, and the public didn't know about it. But the home builders and the real estate people are called stakeholders, and they're notified all the time previously, so that they're aware of what's coming down the pike and they can object. And you seem to be very, very in tune to their objections. Also, I'm going to be paying $10 for a parking sticker up here, and I was told that is to pay for the time that it takes the city to work on filling out the forms and putting it in the computer and that. Yet to do the, I thought there was some sort of a law that people have to pay for what their services that are being rendered by the city. Well, this is a service being rendered to the people of the construction and building community, and it's going to take time by the city, additional time, so maybe they need to pay for that additional time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, very good. You're next on this side.
Bobby Stewart, Old Central Antique Mall. And I just wanted to thank the mayor for his work that he has done for us. And I think the council would like to thank him too. I have gone around the town and sort of collected things from the merchants, and I can't believe that every merchant downtown, other than maybe one or two that are always closed anyway, donated something for the mayor. And he certainly is loved downtown, and I had enough stuff to put in 3 baskets. But I figured it would take a crane to lift it up here. So I'm going to do 2 baskets, one for tonight from the council and me and the town, and then one from the Bay Street Association. So thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, for your service to our town.
Well, you're welcome, Bobby, and what little service I've done pales by Port Orchard Bay Street and your service. But thank you so much, and I think you realize how much I appreciate a Bobby basket. I spend a lot of money trying to win Bobby baskets.
And he does, too.
And I have, but no, I mean, I'm not, but I was lucky enough to win 1 or 2.
Oh, good.
And so this is beautiful. This is very much a surprise.
And part for Donna, too, for both of you. So.
Okay, well, can I repurpose this and put her name on it for Christmas? No, I won't do that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. A little embarrassing, even. So, anyone else? Yes, please.
I just wanted to add to that I especially appreciate the effort made to have town hall meetings, to have the seasonal concerts, and also the Points of Light Awards. I thought that was a really great thing to bring to the community. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I had a couple of go to the order items. So
Okay.
If citizen comments are done.
Yep. I don't see any other hands, so I believe our comment period's closed. So what's the good of the
Okay,
order?
and we have the RFP for our new legal services out on the street, and it will close January 8th. And I would just ask that if I could get a couple council members to volunteer to participate in that process. It'll most likely start somewhere the week of January 11th, if we're lucky, and for sure the week of the 18th. Is there anybody, a couple council members willing to?
I'd be happy to be part of that. I'd be willing to.
Okay. I don't want a quorum there, but,
Okay.
2 or 3, so I said, John, Cindy, were you in town, or?
On the 11th, that week I am.
You are the 11th? It
Depending on when
It could be that week, that's aggressive, but,
Okay.
okay, so for sure, John and Beck, and either Sean or Cindy, depending on who's available that time. So, thank you. I'll be contacting you. And then I just want to make sure our impact fees ordinance, goes into effect January 1st. I just want to make sure that there isn't any concern with with our interlocal with the school district and being able to collect that in January with the current interlocal agreement.
Yeah, so there's no concern. We're going to continue doing what we've always done, and that's the school collects the money and provides a receipt to the applicant who brings it to the city to confirm that it's been paid. That wasn't outlined under our old ordinance, and that's not outlined under the new interlocal agreement. And so nothing's really changing in terms of liability. We had tried to bring an interlocal agreement forward by the end of the year to correspond with the implementation of the new ordinance. The school district on Friday provided a letter outlining a number of concerns, some of which were new concerns that we hadn't heard. And so we're sorting through their comments and trying to continue to work on that. But given the timing of our receipt of that letter, we wanted to look into a few more things and talk about it before we proceed. And obviously with new legal counsel,
I'm fine as long as we're not going to stop. We'll be fine collecting the fee with the current
they will
agreement.
still collect the fees. I think the important thing for council to understand is none of this is outlined anywhere as far as the relationship, and it needs to be at some point.
Okay, we'll get her done. And then lastly, I think this could be Mr. Childs' last meeting here too, and I'd just like to thank you for your service to our city. You've been around for a number of years, and I appreciate the work you've done. So, thank you.
Here.
Okay, any other good of the order? Any other comments? If no one objects, then we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Did either of you get an email?